Right, audio is working. Just recorded this video, got to do it again now because I wasn't recording any audio. I'm amazing like that. Right, so we've got keyboard input working on this now. I did add a couple of things to it, but obviously we missed it because I accidentally didn't record any audio. Right, so how is this working? GLFW has some functions in it which because obviously it's handling our window, it handles the input for the window as well, and we need to understand it basically. So I've just gone over to the input guide on GLFW quickly. We want key input, and I'm going to ignore all this because I don't need it. You guys can have a look if you want. It's just the input guide of glfw.org. So we've got glfw set key callbacks. This is a function that we're going to need in the initialization of the window, where we set the function that's going to be updating all the variables that we want to use in our project. And to do that, we have to pass it in a function, but we have to make the function first. And in here is the guidelines for making that function. So it's the function that we're going to make is, well, actually, the function you're going to make, I've already made it. I'm just going to go through it. You've got a glfw window pointer, and then you've got 4 integers for the key, the scan code, the action, the mods. We're only really interested in the action and the key, and basically we want to update a Boolean array inside our project of all the integer values of each key, which is handily right here. And we're going to be going from 0 to 100 because there's no need to have 1024 like I do on my other project. God knows why I was told that was the number we needed, considering nearly every single game has what, maximum of 16 inputs. It's kind of mad, really. So here you can see all the different number values for what's going to be called basically when you press them on whilst the project's running. So for example, if you want to use like right alt, I couldn't have picked a worse one, could I? Alt right, Jesus. Anyway, if you wanted to use that, then you'd obviously need more than 100 values in your Boolean array. You'd need at least 346, maybe just round it up to 400 to be safe. So I've gone over that a little bit quickly, but it will make sense in a minute because I'm going to go through the functions and how we've made them. So we've got the Boolean array that I was talking about, and this is going to be the references for every single character integer. So A is 65, B is 66, C is 67, etc. And this array is going to be updated by this function, which will be updated by glfw whilst the window's running when you call glfw poll events here in the main loop. Now I went through that fast, so I'll redo that a bit in a longer process anyway. But this is just an overview. But yeah, so inside your Windows class or inside your main project, it depends if you're using a class or not. And I'll try and this will mainly be for people that are using a class, but I will also word it for people that are using just a main project with all the initialization of the window inside their main. So basically, we have a Boolean array for you guys using a standard project. Just slap that wherever you want. It's fine as long as it's before the initialization of the window. And you need to initialize that obviously with a constructor. So our stuff is for the window constructor. We've got for the number of values inside the array, we initialize them to false. And then we'll go back to this one. And then we've got this function here, static void key callback, glfw window pointer with window in, the key, the code, the action, the mods. That's the function I was talking about that we've got to make from here, this one. And how does this work? For you guys using a main again, I don't think you're going to need, using this in the main, I don't think you're going to need the static part, so don't worry about that. And for key callbacks here, for the guys using the main again, I don't think you're going to need this. because your window is going to have, it's just going to be a GLFW window surely. It's not going to have any of these additional variables we've got attached to ours. We've got you know, the uints, the glints, and the boolean array. They're all attached to our window, but for guys that are initialized on a window without anything attached to it, just the GLFW window, you won't need this little cast here. So inside this function, what is this cast doing? Basically, as I said about this GLFW window in, is taking a class value of GLFW, and for our key pressed ID array, this one here, that's not attached to this class, so we have to cast it to a type of our window. So we've got a window pointer, window in alt equals static cast window pointer, and then we get the window user pointer, and that's the way that we set up well, we cast the GLFW window to our window type. So that's what we need to do for the class. If you're not using a window in a class, then you don't need to worry about this bit. For the next part then, we've got if GLFW key escape for the key, and if GLFW press for the action, then we set GLFW should close to true, and basically from this point you want to check that this is working as a function. So in order to be able to check this, you need to make sure that in your initialization of the window here, where we set the make context current, the GLFW window user pointer is main window. This, I think for you guys again using main, I don't know if you have to do that. Then after that, we set the key callbacks, and we pass in the main window and the key callback function. If this comes up squiggly, then the chances are you've forgot to put in the static void part there. So we'll go back down to the function. Oh, actually, back over to the main or the while loop, because we're checking, aren't we? So make sure inside the while loop you've got GLFW pile events, and from this point you should be able to run it. And when it runs, press escape, and it should close, and then you know it's definitely working. So we'll go back to the key callbacks part. From here, we now know that this function is working, so we want to check where we want to make this function usable for us. So this is basically updating this array here, the key pressed ID, with the character that gets pressed. You see how this is key equals GLFW key escape? Well, that's going to be a number value, and sets, yeah. So for us, we've got if the key is more than 0 and less than 100, which is the size of the array, and if the action equals press, then we set the window in alt, the point, the cast that we made up there, key pressed ID array with a key ID to true if it's pressed, and false if it's released. And you want an else if here, because I found that if you only have else, it's quite funny because it doesn't actually reset the value. Well, it doesn't actually set the value to true, so it stays reset the value to false, so it stays true forever. And that is the key callbacks function in a nutshell. So back over to the Windows class, we've got another thing here, Boolean array, get key pressed array. We're going to need that, so that basically returns the key pressed ID. And then we go over to Opengl function, well, mine's the main function even, sorry. And I quickly made this little function here to check that it's working. So we've got a void keys check, we take in the Boolean array of keys, and then we've got a couple of variables there updated by reference, and if the keys equals key A or D or W or S, then we do stuff to the variables that are passed in. You could do this for pretty much anything like space to jump or whatever, but you just need to make sure that the rest of it is okay, so that's the keys check part. And in the main, let's go down to the main, we have GLFW poll events there, and funny enough, this should be up here, but which is quite funny actually, because that means that this is updated late. Anyway, so GLFW poll events, then we got keys check, the main window, get a key pressed array, which is getting the key pressed array from the window. for you guys using just the main, you're only going to need to put in the array in there. You don't need to put you don't need to get anything. It would just be whatever your array is called, and then the two variables that we want to update, which I've initialized behind the while loop, and then we just need to do whatever we want with the variables that we're passing in there, because they're updated by reference. So we've got model translate, and we translate by x and y, which gives you the fun movement. Yeah. If you're not using a shader to update your model transformations, then this might be a bit different for you. I mean, I prefer it this way because I feel like you can attach this matrix to any object. Like they could all have their own matrices, and then matrices, and pass them to the shader when you draw them. So it's a nice handy thing. I like it. I prefer it to the push and pop matrix stuff. So I hope that helps. I did go over it fast. I think that was like, wow, 10 minutes still. Yeah, I don't think I missed anything. Anyway, let me know if you've got any problems.